everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning if you're joining us from other parts of the world. I'm Nidhi from Paybee. I'm one of the co-founders, and I'm a computer engineer by background. And one of the reasons why we started Paybee is to build tools that really matter, right? To charities, to nonprofits. Both my co-founder and I, Raji, we truly care about nonprofits. We want all of you to be a lot more effective. My guest today is going to be Keith McLean, and he's from KLM Auctions. Uh, hey, Keith.
Hey, Needy, how are you?
Hi. He's
Great
one
to
of
see
the most effective auctioneers that I've come across. He does his fund to need portion very, very effectively, and I've seen him host amazing events. He has over 25 years of experience in just auctioning, and his company runs multiple thousand events. And I guess fun fact about Keith before we start off, he loves wearing his suits. I've seen a better part of his wardrobe. He's in a suit today. It's good to have you, Keith. Welcome.
Needy, thank you so much. What a glorious and hopefully mostly deserved introduction. But great to see you. Always so great to work with you. And you know, for everybody out there, if you haven't seen Paybee's demo, you got to check it out. They just do such a nice job with both their virtual and their in-person events, and really come on strong as a leader in the space. So always a pleasure to work with you and your team, and of course your fine product here. So glad to be here.
Thank you. We did not tell him to say that. Thank you, Keith. Great,
I'll
great.
Venmo you your money right now. No, I'm kidding.
Now let's get started, right? So, our topic today is going to be planning fundraisers in uncertain times. And I feel it's really, really apt for all of us, all of us building technology, the whole crew running auctions, our charities, most importantly. So let's get started. Crazy year 2020. I mean, it's been, what, 9 months? Can you believe in 9 months into
Needy, that's
2020?
that's great. Just a bunch of confusion surrounding. So give you an opportunity to fix that there.
Correct that. All right, correct it. I know it all feels the same at this point. So, what do we have planned for our audience, Keith? Tell us what
Sure,
we're going
sure.
to go
You
through.
know, thanks everybody for bearing with our little joke there, but it sure does feel like, well, we're 2021 already. We're not out of this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way, and we certainly do. I mean, the name of the game in 2021 in particular has become working with uncertainties. And so that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today. And what are some options? What are some choices? And more importantly, what are ways to think about, your events coming up clearly for the fall in particular, but even for next spring, how should you be thinking about this? So obviously there's many options and ideas that are floating around. And today our goal is to present a number of them for your consideration. So just kind of as we kick into this, Needy, just how many virtual events over the past 18 months has Paybee done? How many? So
Very
since
close to
you guys
about,
went headlong into virtuals, how many have you done?
I'd say about 700 events
So good
this
number of
month.
events. And then when did you start getting back doing in-person events? And about how many have you done since in the recent period since we started doing in-person events again?
I would say it started sometime this summer when things started opening up.
Yeah.
A lot of clients started to go back in person. At this
Yeah.
point, again, it's a moment of chaos, right? Like, okay, what to do with Delta, and should we go virtual? Should we continue staying on course in person? Should we go hybrid? Right?
That's absolutely right. And,
Mm.
KLM auctions, my company's performed about the same. So we normally year we're about 250 events.
Mm.
Obviously, COVID kind of shrunk that down a little bit, but we still managed to pull off about 100 virtual events over the last 18 months. So obviously got a lot of experience there. And since we've come back, we did our first in-person event back in about mid-May, and we've probably done, normally would have done a lot more, but we've probably done about 24, maybe 25, 26 events in the last 4 months or so. So again, obviously we've had hundreds of discussions on these topics, and now have a much better sense of what works and what's most effective than we did 18 or even 15 months ago. So hopefully our goal today is to give some of those recommendations to everyone here and kind of help people figure out where they should be focusing their energy.
Sure. Again, I guess for both of us, our goal is to make sure all charities are successful, no matter what, right? No matter what gets thrown their way. So, Keith, what are you seeing? What are others doing? What are other charities doing from your purview? Are
Sure.
they
Well,
stalling? Are they
hey,
canceling?
don't
What's
use
going
that
on?
language on this webinar. That's not allowed. That's the word cancel or postpone. We're going to try and hopefully get everybody to realize that that's not your best option here today. Those are bad words here. We're going to try not to use those. No, seriously, obviously that's an option, but the reality is, hopefully we'll convince you that canceling or postponing or doing nothing, we have better options than that. That's the goal today. So what we're seeing is that people are reevaluating their a lot of options. They're reevaluating their venues. Can we keep it indoor? Should we move outdoor? If we do it indoor, how can we increase the spacing and the airflow, things like that? They're considering their event format. Obviously, should we keep doing in person? Should we go virtual, some kind of hybrid, perhaps watch parties? So we're going to kind of address all those. But one way or another, what we're seeing is that our strongest organizations are adapting. They're moving forward. And the reality is, there's a couple realities here. One is you need the money. I've had one nonprofit in my entire career in 25 years and over 1,400 events that I've done who has told me, you know what, we're not doing an event because we don't need the money. So unless you're that client, then hey, congratulations. But I just don't hear that. So, so one, everybody needs the money. And two, equally importantly, donors are there. They want to give you the money and they are feeling wealthy. Like I can't emphasize that enough. Needy, I'm kind of going off script here, but one thing I want to bring up was in the Great Recession in 2007, 8, and 9, what we found is my business grew tremendously because more people were doing auctions just because they had to. There's no other way to make money. So they, and that at least worked. But they were really hard. In the Great Recession, our auctions were hard. People weren't feeling wealthy. We put, I remember you felt like you're begging for money every time on stage and just every last dollar you're begging for. Now we're kind of the opposite. A lot of groups aren't doing events. They're kind of thinking, well, let's wait and see. But events are going spectacularly well. I can't emphasize enough how much, particularly our in person, but even our virtual events, how well they're doing. And I'd love to say, oh, it's because of me. It's not. It's not because of me. It's not because of the software. It's not because of any of these things. It's because people can't believe how rich they feel right now. I mean, most of your donors probably own real estate. They probably own their homes. They probably have stocks or retirement accounts or something. I was just at an event in Lake Tahoe, chatting with some folks. Their house doubled in value in the last 4 years up there. Again, they just couldn't believe how wealthy they are. And a lot of people, particularly in Northern California, but really across the country, can't believe how wealthy they are right now. And the good news is as a result of that, primarily, they're being incredibly generous. And we're seeing that across the board. So, Great Recession, a lot of auctions, but harder to get money out of people. Now, fewer auctions, but really easy to get money out of people. And I think the other thing is because there's fewer events, people aren't going to, they're not spread as thin between different events. So if you have an event, if you ask them for money, they're just so much more likely to say yes, and more importantly, be generous at your event, because they have the money and they're not getting pulled in a lot of different directions.
No, totally. I agree. I think donors are very empathetic. They are very mindful of, what needs to be done in the world. And again, from charity standpoint, it's always easier to keep a supporter than to go acquire a new one. So you want to keep that relationship going and inculcate, right?
That is true. And not to sprinkle some fear on that too, but if they don't give you money, they're going to give somebody money. And so that's the other thing we always say is, in some ways, being sure you do something or hold an event is defensive. It's as much to, acquire resources as to make sure people don't go elsewhere and, drop their resources elsewhere.
No, and I think the industry numbers say that as well, right? So last year, $471.44 billion were raised, right? Which is a 5% increase over 2019. So the giving has definitely gone up.
So Nidhi, I want to think about that for a second. So last year, $500 billion in this country alone went to charitable causes. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Pushing $500 billion. And by the way, that's almost 25 at a 5% increase over 2019. Just not to get dive into numbers too deeply, but that's almost 25 billion more in a time of pandemic. $25 billion more in this country was donated to charitable causes in 2020, which are the latest numbers, versus 2019. Now, 18 months ago, I'm not sure anybody suspected that, and I think a lot of us weren't sure what would happen. But now the proof is irrefutable. Events are working both in person and online, and that's kind of we're hoping to kind of go a little deeper on that today.
No, definitely. So let's now get into specifics, right? So what do you think has changed since last summer?
Sure. The best news since last summer is we kind of know what we're doing. So not to put too fine a point on it, but I think just being honest, last summer, everybody, I think people like you and me, Nidhi, were maybe half a step ahead of everybody else, just trying to figure out what was doing. And we've done, all of a sudden you're an expert because you've done 3 events. I mean everybody in your position, in my
Mm,
position. And so I think that was, I don't want to say faking it, because we're doing the best that we could and the best that was available. But now, you've done so many events, we've done so many events. I
mm,
think we now know a lot what works. So I think, the tech is easier than it was now. There are a lot of software companies trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what do we need to do? Is it better to do your virtual event just from everybody's computers, or do you need to rent out an expensive studio? The talent was kind of stumbling through it, trying to figure out what to do. Auctioneers were, you know, you know, uh, again, half a step ahead of everybody, trying to figure out how to make
mm.
this work. We didn't have best practices for run of show, how to put things in order. But now we're really far up the learning curve. And so, donors and generals are comfortable with the tech, and there's a lot of examples of that as well, not just vendors or suppliers like you and I are comfortable with the tech, needy, but donors are more generous and comfortable with the tech. I think people are a lot more comfortable bidding online. They're comfortable joining a video call. They're way more comfortable using QR codes. I mean, somehow in the last year, everybody started using QR codes to pull up menus on their phones. So I think everybody knows you just open a camera, name it, and that'll happen. And your software and a lot of software just can really just made so much easier through QR codes. Using credit cards online, the last few people who weren't comfortable with that are comfortable with that now. So I think there's really been really just the comfort level has just become so much greater with all things having to do with both virtual and kind of partial virtual, partial in-person events.
Not true, right? That's something that we constantly think about, right? How can we make sure that grandma and grandpa and somebody who is not technically challenged and somebody who is technically challenged, right, can use technology just as easily? It should be the same experience for everyone, right? And again, what we're seeing with, again, COVID, I guess it pushed us all into this arena. But how can you expand your audience? Because suddenly now you have people from all over the country, all over the world even joining, right? People who could not physically make it to your event on Saturday 26th November 6 p.m. at this location are suddenly now able to attend your event, right? One of the fun things we saw last weekend, just on Sunday, we had a hybrid event, one of our clients had. And out of the 5 live auction items, 2 were actually won by virtual donors. Right, there was bidding going on in the room. People were raising paddles, and then you have these 2 virtual donors who just came and outbid everybody and took away the item. Right, again, they would just not have been able to be a part of that event if it wasn't for the virtual component. Right, so we think about donors, we think about charities who are able to expand their audience, and also the team itself, right? The volunteers team who's running the event. How can they have the most cutting edge, efficient tools that they can do their roles really, really well? Right? So talking about virtual, and well, Zoom is always a part of this conversation. Zoom burnout, Keith, do you think it's real?
A lot of people talk about Zoom burnout. That's a big question I get all the time. My take is yes and no. I think I'd like to ask everybody, when was the last time you were on a Zoom birthday party, or did a Zoom cooking class, or, did kind of a Zoom cocktail hour after work? I think people are wildly done with that stuff. I just think, turns out it wasn't that much fun, so people aren't doing that. But I do think in a lot of ways, Zoom is being even more used. A lot of calls that used to be phone calls, now I just make them Zoom calls just so that we can look at each other. I think people are really kind of getting comfortable with that. And I think from a fundraising standpoint too, I think people are more comfortable with that. And I think the key Zoom is it's very nuanced. And so I think it works in such virtual events and things on Zoom, or things on, kind of software such as this work for some events better than others. But for a lot of events where they do work, I think being very specific about what your expectations are too. Like I always tell our people, if you're doing a virtual event, don't say it starts at 7 o'clock. Say it runs from 7 to 8, because I think a lot of people will think, if I get on at 7 o'clock, what are they going to drag me in through this till 9:30? I'm not going to do that. But if you say 7 to 8, or 7 to 7:45, or 7 to 7:50, and you stick to it, people go, okay, I'll give you an hour. I'll give you 45 minutes. So I think again, it's nuanced, but I think for the right things, I think what we've seen is people will absolutely still participate in Zoom events, if that's the direction you want to go. And this presentation, we definitely want to incorporate both in person, how to do in person, and Zoom as well. So we'll be talking more on that as we come up here.
Definitely. Let's jump in, right? So let's say a charity has an event planned this fall. What do you recommend? How should they thing
Sure.
that
So
most
let's
people
talk
feel.
about our clients kind of fall into a couple categories. They either are doing a virtual event, in which case they're pushing forward. Some clients, even this summer and last spring, were like, we just don't know. Let's just do a virtual event to be safe. And those clients turned out, they're in great shape. They're moving forward to the virtual event. So we have some clients like that. A lot of our clients are wondering if they can stay the course, particularly for our fall clients. And let's distinguish between this fall and next spring, because we'll come back to the spring. But for fall, it's kind of decision time right now. And that's what we're seeing is a lot of clients evaluating, can we stay the course? First of all, so let's kind of dissect this. Can we continue to do our indoor event? Is that still a reality? Our event's coming up October, November. Can we continue to do our indoor event? The reality is I think you'll know more. I think by talking to your audience and we're seeing the whole spectrum of things. Some clients, particularly outside of Northern California, are like, hey, we can absolutely still do an event. We're still going to do it. Maybe take some special precautions. We're not going to slam a bunch of people in a silent auction area. We've all been in that where you're elbow to elbow filling out silent auction lots before you let them into the main ballroom. We're not going to do that. Maybe fewer attendees, maybe space them out more. Interestingly, we're not really seeing, maybe, I was going to say maybe, vaccine requirements. Again, that's so good for some groups, not as good for other groups. Maybe recent tests. I have certain groups that are doing a fast test. You either got to show proof of vaccine or proof of test, or they'll fast test you right there. Again, the technology is becoming more available and very much less expensive than it has been in the past. So, we can take some precautions and we can still do our in-person event. The other thing I advise on that is if you're thinking about that, some clients are going to go, there's no way we're doing that. Our people aren't going to buy it. And that's totally fine. Other clients are like, yeah, I think our people would go for that and we can do that. And that's fine as well. What I think a lot of people are trying to figure out is what does our audience think? What do our clients think? If we do an indoor event, if we build it, will they come? And I think the important distinction there is realize if you have one or two super vocal, oh, we can't do an in-person event people, is that one or two very vocal people, or is a third of your audience saying, look, if you go indoors, we're not going to attend. I think you want to be sure, don't just let the singular loud voices, make your decision for you. Do a wide survey and kind of figure that out. So that's the first thing, would be stay the course. And surprisingly or not surprisingly, we're seeing a lot of people doing that. And the big reason is, to reiterate, our in-person events are just doing spectacularly well, even if they have fewer people. We have sometimes they have, we've had indoor events where they have maybe 10%, 20%, even 30% fewer people, say an average of 10 or 20% fewer people, and we still make 30 to 50% more money. So I have a number of events. First of all, it's a couple pieces of data I think you'll be interested in. Of the 25 events that we've done, and I just went back and looked at this, of the 25 in-person events we've done since May, literally 100% of them, all 25, have made more money than they did in 2019. Every single one of them. So I think a lot of people are realizing, even if, and I'd love to take credit for that. I'd love to say, oh, it's because the software they're using, whatever. The reality is just, I can't underemphasize the importance of, I can't overemphasize the importance of the fact that people are feeling wealthy and they're giving money now. And so, I strongly encourage everyone to figure out a way to take that, because even with 10, 20% fewer people, a lot of groups are making 30%, 40%, even 50% more money at their events.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned precautions, right? So even on the technology side, we see our charities planning around those precautions, right? So things like, okay, how do we space out groups, right? How can we keep groups together, place only 2 groups per table, have an open seat in the middle, right? So that, yes, there is some social distancing. Again, go with outdoor, and then again, send out waivers in advance, maybe do some checks, right, before people enter. Make sure they're comfortable, right? And do everything you can in your power to make sure that you're creating a safe environment.
Right, whether you're indoors or outdoors. And I'll talk about outdoors events or moving outdoors in just a second.
Totally.
The other thing, Needy, that's interesting there is that I get asked a lot is, are people requiring people to wear masks? Are people requiring people to be vaccinated? And are people requiring, vaccinated or tested or masks? What we're seeing is, a number of events are actually requiring vaccinations. Again, a lot of it depends where you are in the country, but in Northern California in particular, a lot of events are requiring vaccines or recent COVID tests, or some of them can even rapid COVID test you there. Masks, we're not really seeing. I think, the big concern about masks is who wants to police it, right? Just however you feel about masks, and I have clients on all sides of the fence. So I'm not going to address that at all. My thoughts on that in this, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But what I do know is that people don't want to have to police masks at their event, right? You have some people very diligent on masks. Some people, wearing the chin diaper, and then, hey, you pull your mask up. No, I'm not going to screw you. And the next thing you're fighting, just like on Southwest Airlines and stuff. We're not doing that. And I think most people are like, we're not going to go there. So, and I also think, a lot of times, a lot of folks are comfortable in masks for things you have to do. Your kids have to go to school. You've got to travel to Chicago for whatever reason. Fine, they'll wear a mask. But for an optional thing, I mean, people don't have to go to your event. And so I think I think the mask thing doesn't sound like fun for a lot of people. So while a lot of people are wearing masks at events, we're definitely seeing that. I can't think of a client who's requiring masks at their event. Not that you couldn't do it, but I'm not seeing that. And I get that question a lot.
No, totally.
One more point to make there too.
Yes.
All these precautions, so all the ones, the distancing, the vax checks, the recent checks, the all the things that you can do. What we're seeing is that these precautions don't seem to be a deterrent, but in fact, they seem to make the majority of potential donors feel more comfortable. We've had a lot of clients who say, hey, we're going to advertise, hey, we're looking out for your safety. Everybody is going to be vaxxed. Everybody's going to be whatever. So again, depending on your audience, you might get a lot of people attending your event because you're advertising the fact that you're taking precautions, you're taking this seriously, and you're going to be careful.
Oh, definitely. And then there's the other part where some of them are moving outside as well, right, when possible.
We're seeing that a lot. And that would be my first choice, frankly, for a lot of our indoor clients, saying what should we do, particularly in NoCal where the weather's nice and where a lot of folks are not comfortable going back to indoor events yet. If you have an outside option, move it outside. Again, I can't stress this enough. And virtual is a great option for a lot of folks. We'll come back to that. We'll be talking more about that. But in-person events especially are just doing spectacularly well. I'm telling my clients, anything you can do to stay indoors, you're just going to reap the tremendous benefits of people's generosity, and people just can't even believe how wealthy they are right now, and they're being so generous. So, moving outdoors, we've done the overwhelming majority of our in-person events over the last 4 months have been outdoors, and it's beautiful. The weather's good. Even the weather's still probably good enough, especially if you have heat trees, even into mid-November. There's just a lot of benefit. Moving outdoors, to me, is the obvious choice if you can do it.
Totally. And I think an extension of that has been watch parties, right? We are seeing them pop up all over the place, right? People get to stay in their bubbles, stay with people that they're comfortable with, still have the party environment, maybe a little smaller, but still have it and have good food, hang out with people you like, and then support the cause that you're interested in. Right? And we're actually seeing a mix, right? We're seeing people meet in bubbles and then bid digitally or participate in the event digitally, put it up on the big screen, and then use your own devices to bid, to pledge. Or we've also seen versions where you have a slightly bigger group, maybe you have a clerk in there, and actually people are raising paddles. So auctioneer could be remote or in the room. Everything's possible at this point, which is just amazing, right? Like all options are available, everything's open. But auctioneer could be remote, people raising paddles just like they used to, still be a part of a party. And yeah, watch parties have been very, very effective.
We're seeing the same thing, more and more of those. And I think the big reason is because, they're perfectly, you can do them safe, especially somebody has a watch party for 10, 15 people outdoors. It's not risk-free, but I think a lot of folks who are still very worried about COVID say that's an acceptable risk that we can handle. And the other thing, the big thing, reason why that's happening is it sounds like fun, right? I mean, the reality is, and we're going to talk about virtual events in just a second here. Needy might not totally agree with me with this, but the reality is virtual events, it's the days where people in Needy's position, in my position, were saying, hey, virtual events are just as fun as in-person events. I mean, who are you kidding, right? I mean, they're effective, they work, they'll make you money, they do their job. They don't have to be horrible, but the reality is people can't wait to get back in person with friends, and going to a friend's party, to watch a virtual event, but with 4 other couples sounds like fun. And so I think people are getting really fired up about that. The one caution I've got to give about watch parties, and I can't stress this enough, I haven't had this happen at any of mine, but I've heard several other auctioneers talking about it, is you need to be crazy disciplined at getting whoever's running that watch party to have people sit down, watch the screen, and pay attention during the watch party. I can't tell you the stories I've heard of, oh, it's great. We had this watch party with 30 people. We thought it was going to be great. We got 0 bids and 0 donations from that watch party. Why? because everybody's the watch party and the host turns on the TV and nobody's watching it, right? At a live event, it kind of, you can't help but sort of focus people. You shut down the bar, you do everything else. There's nothing for people to do but sit there. They can chat amongst themselves, but the stage and the auction, everything is big. It's hard to miss. Whereas if I'm at a watch party, there's this little TV off in the corner. I'm 50 feet away from it. I'm going to keep talking to my friends. I'm not going to, oh, okay, I guess it's starting. I'll get there in a second. And next thing you know, the fundraising's over and no one's giving any money. So you need to, whoever is leading that watch party has to be a maniac. Hey, now's the time. If you would please sit down. We're all going to pay attention to this. You're not going to make any friends doing that, but that's what you have to have somebody that does, or your watch party is going to be a complete waste of time.
And I think that's where also having a tight run of show helps, right? So as an organization, if you decide, hey, we're going to start at 7 o'clock and the fundraising starts at 7:20, right? So if all the hosts know, yes, they can gather up everybody and then they can be focused. We're going to be done in about 20 minutes and then the party can continue, right? So I think even from like planning purposes and communication, it can just be a lot more effective.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So that's sort of a version of a hybrid, as we're calling it. What about virtual auctions? So obviously, that's where, Paybee can handle any one of them, but Paybee's obviously really established themselves as one of the leaders through virtual auctions. And this is where Needy, and I might have a little bit of a different, thought, Needy, what are you seeing in the virtual auction world? Like with virtual auctions, are people converting their in-person events to virtual? Are you having a lot of that right now?
So we are. It has been mixed. And a lot of them are going hybrid, right? Just to be safe, so that hey, maybe we can still have our in-person portion as well, and then virtual is where everybody can join, right? Everybody can join. And again, what I was talking about, expanding the audience, it just gives you so much more ability to reach out to everybody.
Sure.
Yeah, virtual. I would say hybrid at this point. I'm
Yeah.
all for hybrid. Everybody, I think, should plan a hybrid, but.
Right. And that's where you and I probably different in opinion a little bit. I think it really depends on the organization. That's where Needy or I can really help you figure out, does hybrid make sense for us? I think for some groups, it's a spectacular idea. Other groups, figure out what you are. Are we a virtual event or are we an in-person event? And kind of go that direction. The thing about virtual events that I'm seeing that works so well, and why that really makes a lot of sense. You can debate if they're fun, etc., but you can't debate their effectiveness. I mean, virtual events work, particularly when you give your people a specific time. We're going 7 to 7:45, 7 to 8, 5:30 to 6:15, whatever, a very specific time. You're getting your people there. And we're going to talk about this a little more, like how to draw people to your virtual event, how to get them to attend. That's coming up in just a second. But what I'm saying is you cannot debate their effectiveness, especially at the next net level. I mean, the one thing about virtual events is they are so inexpensive, so easy to put on, and so easy to convert. If we're thinking you're going live, either indoors and outdoors, now you're like, people aren't comfortable. Let's go to virtual. Converting is ridiculously cheap, ridiculously easy, and you can do it, up till almost even the very end. So, so converting to virtual for those who have planned indoor, even outdoor, but mostly indoor in-person events, and are debating converting to virtual. If you decide that's what you want to do, I promise you it's way easier than you even imagined.
I want to add to that, right? Again, from what we've seen in the past years, in person, yes, you have a big family come in or big group of friends come in just for the party. A lot of people come for the party. Virtual events typically is very quite targeted, right? If somebody is giving you their time, they're there to genuinely support you, right? So the proportion of the number of people who actually give at a virtual event to just joining the event to support your cause is just a lot higher. So totally agree with you on the effectiveness portion completely.
Yeah, that's very true. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Is all right. How do you maximize the effectiveness of your virtual event? And that's something that's going to be one of the biggest takeaways from here that I'll get to in just a second. So.
Okay.
So I guess
if all else fails, last option.
Yes, the last choice is postpone. Again, sorry to use that language here on this call, but I feel really strongly that that's just the wrong approach. I mean, unless you don't tell me you don't need money, I just think, one, you're losing money, but two, you're losing your donors. You're probably losing them to other people. More importantly, you're losing your momentum, your fundraising momentum. I just think there's just, I don't see a reason in almost all cases, and we can talk about it one-on-one, but I see very few reasons to postpone or cancel. I just don't. I think we have way better options than that, no matter what the pandemic situation is.
Totally. Okay, let's go past what they should not do. Let's talk about spring now, right?
Right. Okay. So
that's our event in spring. What do you think they should do?
So that's for our fall clients. Obviously, it's coming up on decision time. Spring clients, I think you'd be surprised that how much time you still have. As long as you're making the right choices along the way, you got the right team in place, the right vendors. And by that I mean the venue, the produce soft place. Vendors who can adapt and who can change and who are flexible. Those vendors are flexible as well. For example, your venue, you want to make sure that if you have to postpone for COVID reasons, they're not, they'll roll your money into the next year or whatever. And obviously we're doing that for all our events these days. Now that COVID's a known thing, obviously whatever you need to do, we'll be happy to do it with you. But as long as your contracts and your vendors are flexible, you can really wait up until the last few moments. Like if we're pushing, all right, hey, November, or say in the spring, especially, March 5th is our day. That's our day. We're pushing that out there. Really 2 days before, but even 2 weeks or a month beforehand, really 2 weeks beforehand, converting from an in-person event to a virtual event, going the other way is difficult, but converting from in-person to virtual is really easy. It's your software is the same. It's practically flipping a switch. For your auction team, it's flipping a switch. So what we're advising is, I think things are changing so much and attitudes and comfort levels are changing so much. We're advising all of our spring clients to just keep your date, keep pushing forward to that date with whatever you had planned originally. And if you need to change, let's reevaluate, really probably even towards the end of the year, even after the first of the year, let's reevaluate, because making that change is really a lot simpler than you think if you've got the right pieces set up.
Totally. So, yes, if I could summarize that, basically, if you have the right choices that you've made today in terms of your team, in support of, as well as like technology, you should be good to go. Nothing should stop you at all from
Totally
sticking to
agree. And I
your
think
plan.
if you're flexible, you're going to be
Yeah,
surprised at how late you can very easily make that decision.
totally. All right. So now let's talk about the event itself, right? So, what are the things you think charities are doing to be very, very effective just before the event?
Perfect. So I think most people kind of know what they need to do leading up to in-person events. I feel like, pretty much all of our clients, I hardly ever, less than 5% of our clients are people who have never done an auction before. Most of them have done auctions. So I feel like leading up to in-person events, people kind of understand. So I'm going to kind of focus on leading up to virtual events right now, just for clarity. For virtual events, there's two things that you have to work on, and really only two things leading up to your event that are so important. The first is what you're already aware of, which is getting your content in place, right? You've got to get your videos made, line up your speakers, figure out how you're going to convey your mission, any entertainment or awards or anything else you're doing. People pretty much understand that, okay, if we got a virtual event coming up, we got to line up our content. The big difference between virtual events and in-person events is, if you have an in-person event coming up, I don't want to say it's automatic, but you e-blast out your invitations, you send your invitations, mail, email, whatever, to the people you always do, you're going to get attendees. People are going to come, and I'm not saying it's not, you don't have to work for it, but let's be honest, your in-person events, you probably have people who come, a lot of the same people come every year. They're going to come. I always say, the wife has bought a dress, and so she's not going to forget that Saturday night is your event. She bought a dress and some new shoes. They're coming, right? So that's the easy part. And that's the big difference with virtual. With virtual, getting people to attend and not just register, but getting them to actually attend and log on to your event is everything. I always say you can have the best software, the best auctioneer, the best plan, the best mission, the best videos. But if there's no, you can have auctioneer, janky software, a poor presentation of your mission, janky videos, and you're still going to make money if there's a ton of people there, right? So I can't stress enough the importance of the hustle you have to do to get people there. What I always talk about is, you're basically, for an in-person event, people are coming. The wife, or potentially getting her hair done and her whatever that day, and it's just, everybody's coming. Whereas for a virtual event, you're competing against Costco, right? You got the guy or the family or the husband or the wife or whomever thinking, all right, I meant to go to Costco at 2:00. It's now 4:00. Do I still want to go to Costco, or do I want to go? And first of all, they might even forget about your virtual event, whereas there's no way they're forgetting about it in person. Or they're thinking, I can probably make it back in time to log on for the virtual event. What I want them to do is not go to Costco at 4 o'clock and say, I'm going to go tomorrow instead. So they don't end up still there stuck in the long line at 6:30 and they miss your event. And that is the hard part. So to that event, communication is key. Getting RSVPs, sending reminders, and most importantly, making the calls. I always tell people, for an in-person event, people are going to show up. It's kind of automatic. I mean, anything you can do to drive that is still helpful, but you're going to be okay. Virtually, the number one thing is that people have to actually log on. When we first started doing this, there were three things we're concerned about: getting people to register, getting them to attend, and getting them to stay. Turns out getting them to register and stay are easier than you'd think. We're not seeing a lot of drop off during events. A lot of groups can get people to register. It's getting those registration bids to attend. Industry average is about 50%. Some people say lower. My company's seeing about 60%. Our best events we're seeing are 80% turnout. And the folks who are able to do that, who are able to, as I say, punch above their weight class in that respect, are the ones who do the work. They make the calls a week or two out. They're calling. At the very least, they're people who have donated a lot of money in the past. At best, they're calling everyone. Jim, great to chat with you. We're so looking forward to you and Martha coming to our event. As you know, last year you were so helpful. Your $1,000 donation helped us do X, Y, and Z. This year we have an even bigger goal. We're trying to make, X thousand, X 10, times 100, tens, $100,000, whatever. And so we really need your help even more this year. And by doing that, by making those calls, you're doing two things. One, you're letting them know the importance and reminding them. But two, you're letting them know that they're going to be missed if they're not there. And I think that's the one thing that virtual events, it's so easy to blow off a virtual event, and you're trying anything you can do to prevent that is so important. So getting people to attend with through your various communication ways is key. Getting pre-committed money in dollars is even more important. We used to say you want a third of your money pre-committed if you can in-person events. The rule has kind of changed. If for virtual events, if you can, you want 2/3 of your money pre-committed. So I can't stress the importance of that. We're building momentum, and then if you can get the people there, then your software and an effective auctioneer will take care of the rest. But only if people show up.
Yeah, so building on that, right? Again, we do see charities sometimes spend their time on the wrong set of things. We see them obsessing over the font and the color and the little twirl. That again, all that's important and definitely makes a difference. But yes, getting people to come is most important. Because again, if they don't come, they're not even going to see your little font, right?
For virtual events, if you take one thing out of this webinar, it's all about driving people to your event. I only know one billionaire in the world. I only have one person I'd call a friend who I know well enough to get him on the phone if I had to, who's a billionaire. It's Rob Friedman, who is one of the founders of auction.com, for whom I worked for 6 years. And from the time I was 22, he was drilling into my head, if you can't see him, you can't sell him. That was his motto. And the big difference is in an in-person event, you're going to see them. They're going to show up. If you build it, they will come. It's just going to happen. I'm not going to say it's automatic, but it's just a lot easier to get people to an in-person event than to get them to your virtual event. So driving traffic is everything.
Totally. And I guess, yes, once you finish that and finish focusing on that and driving audience, I would say actually preparation on the charity side as well. So planning through rehearsals and making sure every single person who is going to contribute to that event knows exactly what they're going to do, right? Just having a very, very effective tight run of show and well rehearsed for both virtual and in person, I would say. Right. So let's now continue down the line. So now just getting to just before the event, right? I would say, get the final checks done, make sure that tech, everything's connected up, send out final set of reminders, appropriate reminders, I'd say, to your virtual audience so they know exactly how they're going to join. Hit on one button and you're in. And if you're in person, send them directions to their venue, the address, where should they park, like everything that would be useful, right? Have a reminder which is on top of their mailbox, which goes out through SMS so that they remember to show up. You have things to add, Keith?
Yeah, so the only thing I want to add to that, and I want to get to these next just a couple points relatively quickly so we be sure to leave time for questions. The one thing I want to add that people are asking about is, what has changed in online auctions? What do we know differently? What's changed? The one big change that I think is here to stay as a result of COVID, that really started even before COVID, was the coming on strong of online auctions. I think even before the pandemic, a lot of groups have started moving their in-person sound auctions with the bid sheets and stuff, moving them online. I think that's a change. Obviously everybody moved their silent auctions online during the pandemic, and that's really staying. What we're seeing is that online auctions, because you don't just have the people who are there, you have your entire database to which they're open, but you also don't just have an hour and a half. You can leave them open for a week, and those two things are making online auctions seem to be doing on average, would you say, about 20-30% better than in-person online auctions, than in-person sound auctions? That's
Definitely.
kind of we're seeing. And so a lot of people are and also it's a lot easier. Checkout's easier. Just people are really, there's a lot of big movement to transition sound auctions to online auctions for all those reasons.
Totally. And again, builds up momentum, right? It says on in front of your audience, and oh, this is coming up, and again, it totally builds up momentum. Yep. Cool. Yeah, let's switch to during the event, right? The things that we're seeing, what's really effective during the event. One is super smooth check-in, right? Nobody wants to come there and wait in lines. They want to feel like, hey, they've come to a well-planned event. So, just get check-in done really, really quickly. Another thing we like to do, at least, is to empower the charity's volunteers themselves. So again, that's one place that it can be a more personal touch. They can save a lot of money as well. So the volunteers are all equipped, trained, ready to check in and help the guests throughout the event as well. We, again, a few things, again, I guess I keep going back to product because it's just so much that we think about, right? Like on our paddles, we put on QR codes just so that the guests can do self-checkout, so that it reduces the strain on, I guess, the volunteers who are doing checkout at the end of the event. No guest should ever wait in line, right? That's what we keep thinking about, whether it's a check-in or a checkout.
Let me just reiterate that works spectacularly well. We did our first event with Paybee, live event with Paybee 2 weeks ago, and basically as auctioneer, you just announce, hey, everybody on your paddle, your paddle's right here. You have a QR code in the corner. When you want to check out, scan the QR code on your paddle, check out on your phone, and you're done. It was phenomenal how well it worked.
No, totally. Those paddles are amazing. Again, though we build technology, we think there is beauty in paddles, right? People should be able to raise their arm and show to the world that I support this organization, and your friends on your table. Again, the whole social thing, and the social reinforcement. But paddles work beautifully. They raise their paddles and then make checkout super easy, right? All right, so we're getting short on time. We'll get through post-event. Events done, super successful. We made a lot of money. What do you recommend post-event?
Sure. So really, there's just two things. Obviously, collecting money is important immediately after the event. It's harder to recover money than it is at the event. So anything you can do to collect your money at the event is always helpful. Continued giving, though, obviously, a lot of groups are taking, when they do a virtual event, they're taking that recording of that and sending it out to their entire database. Hey, by the way, and I always like to say we did spectacularly well at the event. We hit our ad event goal, but we're still a little way to go on our overall goal. Once you watch the video and consider making another, making another donation, there's still opportunity to donate and basically continue the fund and need online afterwards, as well as finish bidding on your online lots if you're having an online auction.
Totally. And I would add to that, flash sales are really popular at the moment. So online flash sales for items that were really, really popular. You want to sell some more of those, or items that did not sell, right? Say, hey, we're doing a flash sale for just a day, and then get more people to participate on it.
Yeah, I don't know why more people do that. A good idea that not too many people are utilizing is, if I was a director of development, go to your board and say, hey, if you ever have anything even last minute that you think we could sell and make $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 for the organization. For example, you're not using your season tickets, you're not using your box at the Warriors game or whatever. You're not using your vacation rental. Usually it's a popular weekend, Memorial Day weekend or something, and all of a sudden you realize, even if it's next week, rental property, now we're not able to give it to the organization. It's so easy. You can set it up in Paybee. Just they can send out an email going, hey, flash sale, we're doing a one-day auction. Whoever wins gets to use this person's cabin in Lake Tahoe for the weekend or something. I'm surprised there's not more of that going on, because I think that's just a real easy way to just be constantly fundraising. And wow, here's something that was going to go to waste. Now we've monetized it and everybody feels good about it.
Totally. Yeah, more flex. Cool. How should charities look at the road ahead?
Sure. So I think the overlying theme hopefully here is, there's a couple overlying themes. One, don't do nothing. There's just too many opportunities at whatever amount of money you want to spend and whatever amount of money you want to make. There's just too many opportunities to that are there's too much opportunity, and there's too many. Do way better than doing nothing. So don't do nothing. Obviously, relationships are super important. This isn't a one night thing. This is Match.com, not Tinder. So obviously, it's a long term relationship with the clients. By doing something, you're keeping that relationship. Going. I think it's still, whether we're online or in person, it still focuses back to your relationship. You're continuing. You're not moving backwards in that, and you can keep moving that effort forward.
And we keep telling our charities, keep doing many events, right? Everything doesn't have to be about that one big event that you have, right? Continue building the relationship, have many events. It could be movie nights, it could be little competitions, it could be anything, right? Like whatever your audience finds engaging, whatever they enjoy in. And again, all this just builds momentum up to your one or two big events that you might have in a year. All right, so Kit, one big takeaway before we open up Q&A.
Fantastic. In conclusion, the one big takeaway is don't do nothing. We have plenty of ideas. There's some way you can make money. And then, of course, I give two takeaways. Don't do nothing and drive traffic to your virtual events. Those are my two big takeaways.
Totally. Awesome, awesome. Let's open it up to Q&A right now. Anybody has questions, feel free to post it in our chat. We have our producer up here who's going to send the questions over to us. All right, we have one that just came in. A question from Jyoti. How effective are hybrid events? Do you want to take
Great
that?
question.
I have
Needy and I
thoughts
probably
too.
haven't seen the exact same things here. So Needy, you answer. Do you want me to answer first, or do you want to answer first?
Go for it, and
So
then
I'll
I'll
take this
go.
first. So to be frank with you, I think it's a very specific client for which a hybrid event makes the most sense. If you truly have a national or an international audience, so we have clients like that. They historically have done events in different cities. They're truly national. They have a lot of people who are going to join online. That makes sense. A buddy of mine joked about it, and I don't want this to be in every case. I don't want Needy to kill me here, but I think people hopefully appreciate differing opinions here. One of my auctioneer friends said a houseboat is a crappy house and it's a crappy boat. So figure out whether do you want to be a house or do you want to be a boat? What are you? And then if you want to be a boat, build the best boat, get the best boat you can afford. If you want to be a house, live in the best house you can afford. I kind of feel like hybrid auctions in some cases are houseboats. They're not a great live auction and not a great virtual auction for some events. And so a few that we've done, I felt should have been all hybrid. I mean, should have been all virtual. We've done one that should have been all virtual. We've done about three that should have been all in person, where the virtual was just kind of a not necessarily add on. I think Needy's seeing other things, hybrid events, and make a lot of sense. Needy, what are you seeing where you'd say this event really should be a hybrid event? What are you seeing?
We keep proposing everybody to have hybrid, right? Again, from data, from what we are seeing, to give you some risk with people still being afraid, they should be able to support you no matter where they are. Right?
Fair enough. So I think so. There's a couple, we're sort of saying the same thing, sort of a little bit different opinions there, but I think that's fine. So.
Okay, we have a question from Jyoti, and how do small charities define their target?
Yeah, a lot of groups seem to use history, right? I mean, a lot of, you kind of can take it from the supply or the demand side. The supply side is historically, what have you been able to raise? How much are you able to raise? How much, can you raise? I'm always thinking about growth, right? I never want to be the guy that makes you less money. It's professionally humiliating to make you less money than you made in the past. So always thinking, how do you make more? So that's sort of from the supply side. Then, obviously there's the demand side of how much money do you need, right? I mean, and that's, obviously figuring out what do we need to raise. And I think the best charities don't just say, hey, let's build it, see what happens. They say, all right, we've got to raise this much money. How do we go about? And let's work with our auctioneer. Let's work with our software company to make sure, we have a plan in place that gives us a fighting chance of hitting those numbers so we can fulfill our mission and do what we have to do.
I would add to that again, building passion, right, among your donors. So the ones who truly support you, find more people like them. Again, they all have networks. Tap out, right? I've seen the charities that have the best fundraisers have the most passionate audience. They're there because they genuinely care, because they understand the difference that you're making, right? Build that. And again, it's not an easy task. I would not say that, hey, just run a marketing campaign and suddenly you have your whole donor base, right? You have to put in the effort. You have to build it out. And I would just go with, people who care about you, and then finding more people like them through their networks, and then expanding your community that way.
Yeah, perfect. So let's
All
go
right.
on to the next question. Hey, I see my friend Melinda from Kamuela, from the Big Island. Nice to hear from you, Melinda. Got people coming from all over the place for this. Melinda says we're looking at offering 4 tops, 6 tops, and 8 tops. I think you mean 4 top tables, 6 top tables, 8 person tables, so that attendees can buy a table with the couples they're comfortable with. Not sure how we're going to price that yet. Any suggestions? Yeah, what a great idea. Haven't seen that as much, but I think, particularly if you can go outdoors, maybe sell tables with people they're comfortable with. Just, again, nothing's perfectly safe, but you're good friends, their habits. You think, all right, these people are probably more likely to be safe than those people. I mean, I'm just kidding, but I think you're absolutely right. I think people are going to be more comfortable hanging with their friends, and we haven't really seen it yet, but what a great idea. I think that's a spectacular idea. Say, hey, you can buy, the right size table with a small group of friends that you trust. Particularly, a place like Hawaii, it's a no-brainer because the weather's so good all the time. And so, and it's not never too cold to be outside. So I think that's a great idea. How to price it? We'd have to think about that. I think still ticket price, if you add other things, sponsorship opportunities, whatever, you can maybe price for more. But I think that's a great idea, having different size tables, different size options, and maybe just price it on a cost per person basis.
Sounds great. All right. So Rachel's asking, who do you send your flash sale to? What mailing list?
I'd say your whole database. I think, why not? I mean, every nonprofit I know has a database, has an e-blast list, people you're communicating with all the time. That's the beauty of it, is you can send it out to everybody, your entire database. So.
And spread the word on social media as well, right? Share it with your Facebook following, your Instagram, your Twitter following, and then again, people tend to reshare, and then their network see it as well. So definitely have a network effect. So,
absolutely. Oh, it looks like we just got another one.
Copy those in need USA. Do you send a schedule of auctions who might attend?
Do you have that? We haven't done that in the past. I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one. Do you have a list, Needy, of your Paybee events coming up?
Always. Some clients do have private events, and again, their stories, especially, they want to keep it confined. Some charities have open events, and anybody can come and support them. So yeah, we don't publish a list specifically, but yes, again, if you're interested in watching one of our clients' events, we're happy to reach out to the client and ask if they're comfortable, and then share the word with you.
Yeah, I'd say if you want to reach out privately, we'll post all of our information here. We'll have that posted at the end, and I'll just type it in here in a second. But if you want to reach out, obviously we can get you to look at it, to view an in-person event, a virtual event, whatever you want. We can obviously line that up.
Okay. All right. Shelley's asking, if you're having an in-person event, would you still do an online silent auction and anything in person?
Great question. So if you're having an in-person event, would you still do an online sound auction? Yeah. So let's talk about that. So sound auctions are interesting. They really fall into 2 camps. We have groups where they're thinking, hey, we make 30, 40 grand or whatever your number is for our sound auction. It's absolutely worth our time. And then we have other groups who it seems to do so much work, spend 80% of their time on their sound auction to make 5% of their money. We have groups who spend 200 labor hours to make $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000. There's no way that's worth it. And so I think what I would do if it was my event, I'd say, all right, first of all, does the sound auction make sense for us? How much time and energy and trouble it is to procure the sound auction or online auction items? And frankly, do we have that labor? A lot of schools seem to still be doing online auctions because, my joke is that they have, 200 parent hours that they can abuse, right? I mean, they can just, and sometimes it's more about the camaraderie and the social activities than actually making money from that. And that's great. But if your goal is to make money, and you're looking at it, maybe spending 200 hours is worth it if you make $30,000, $40,000. But if you spend all this time to make not very much money, maybe you want to not do a silent or an online. That said, if you come to the conclusion that yeah, silent or an online is worth our while, again, a lot of groups are looking at online only, just putting it online, because you have way more people participating because it's your entire database, not just the people there, and you have way more time. It's not just an hour and a half. People can bid for the entire week, 5 days before and 2 days after, or whatever. And so, if for an in-person event, the short answer to your question is yes, I would probably still look at doing online. And then maybe some groups are also doing super silent auctions. Like maybe you move most. You say you have a big silent or online component. You have a relatively easy time getting a lot of stuff, and it makes you enough money to be worth it. I think a lot of groups are saying, hey, let's maybe put our 5 or 10 or 15 best things in a super silent at our event, just because that's not that hard to manage. It's not that hard to check out. It gives people something to do during your event. But you still make more money because most of your events online and open to more people for a longer time. And B, you're still getting rid of that everybody tightly packed 150 live auction, or excuse me, 150 silent auction lots, and everybody's packed in like sardines trying to make their way up to see if they're still the high bidder. There's advantage to doing like that. So hopefully that answered your question.
So I would add a little more to that. Again, there are ways of acquiring your items, right? A lot of consignment goods providers who can help you fill up your silent auction list, right? So that can be an effective way. We're seeing a lot of like the soft items that you could sell, like volunteering sessions or dinner with celebrities. All of them do really, really well at silent auctions, right? So it is, again, earlier people used to put up these gift baskets. There used to be people who collect items and create them. Again, could totally be done, but it doesn't have to be the only option, right? You could put together a silent auction pretty quickly, source items from friends and family, put it in, use data from previous years, what did really well, and put that in your silent auction. So I think you could be smart about it. And then again, talking about it continuing at your event, you could either continue digitally, or some people like to switch to paper format, right? And go the old school style, which is also very, very effective, right? We tend to say that, hey, yeah, continue your online auctions so that people at home can continue participating. And again, talking about them continuing to do that event, we strongly feel that if people are coming to your event, have them focus on the show that you're putting up. And don't have them look into their phones and continue bidding, because then next thing you know, they're on SMS, Instagram, and then you've lost their attention, right? So again, keep technology away, have them just focus at your event.
Well, Nidhi, you're getting a little digitized out here, so I think we caught most of that. But I think we're right at 1:59 now. Our goal is to keep this to an hour, to be respectful of everybody's time. This is a great turnout. We had over 100 folks here. Thank you all so much for joining us. Anything else? Obviously, I put my email address in the chat right there. And so hopefully we can put that out there, maybe put it up right afterwards. Again, it's just keith@klmauctions.com. Nidhi, you want to share yours?
Sure. Nidhi at paybee.io. We are very happy all of you came. Hopefully my voice is still coming through. Thank you so much for attending, and we hope you found this useful.
Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.